Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Rational Trader Podcast. With me is my co-host Louis Navellier. Louis, I'm actually a little depressed today.
Why? Is it cloudy?
No, the sun's shining. I should be feeling extraordinary joy at this time of year, but earnings season is ending, and the Federal Reserve isn't going to cut rates, and Trump tariffs aren't going to ruin the economy. So, what does it all come down to? Earnings, earnings, earnings. But earnings season is ending.
No, well, we have Navellier. That's the grand finale. And after that, we'll
I
have
have to wait till
Costco
I
and
have to
Dow.
wait till after Memorial Day for Nvidia. Okay,
No, it should be before.
is it?
Should be before.
I think
Yeah,
it's May 28th.
yeah. But I'm glad you mentioned Memorial Day. People tend to rally in the holiday weekends. The market tends to rally because everybody's in a good mood.
It's interesting you say that. I was just kind of formulating my thoughts on this because from a technical perspective, the major market indexes are really flirting with the 200-day moving average. We've been ever since Liberation Day, and even before that, trading below the moving average. And we may, once we get confirmation above that 200-day moving average, there's 10% upside or more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're going to be fine since the Fed cuts. So, I think there's about 5% downside risk in the market and about 25% upside, but we won't give it until the Fed cuts.
Yeah, there were a whole slate of Fed officials speaking today, and of course, I didn't pay attention to any one of them. Did you?
No.
Well, I'm
No, because they live
curious.
in a
I guess
they
maybe I
live in
should
a
do some
fantasy
research on
world.
that because I'm curious what they're saying. It sure seems like Powell is. I heard the bond guy Jeffrey Gundlach call him Mr. Magoo.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I know we shouldn't name call. I apologize. I'm just having a little fun. But
I
he's
know.
driving around in his car, and he's just waiting for the tree to hit. He doesn't know if it's the inflation tree or the economy tree.
I know. It's confusing. Got Jeff Gundlach. He's like Robini. Anytime, no, no, yeah. How I said, anytime you want somebody bearish, you just talk to Jeff Gundlach. He's just like the biggest sourpuss on the planet. Okay.
I you know having started 40 years ago almost now as a municipal bond guy, right? And I respect Gundlach for his views on the rates markets, but like
Hmm.
similar to who was it Bill Gross at PIMCO? As
Yeah.
soon as they start talking, they think their acumen in the bond market translates to the equity market, and it really doesn't.
No. No. I mean, it's hard being a bond guy because when rates back up, you lose money. So, and remember, under Biden, in like a 2.5 year period, we had the 30-year back up so much that if you bought at the wrong time, you literally lost 50% of your money. And that's why all those lifestyle models, you're 70, you should be 70% bonds and 30% stocks, or you're 80, you should be 80% bonds, 20%. That's why all those lifestyle models broke apart,
Well,
was the backup in
you
rates.
know, my guy Al Frank,
Hmm.
he was in his 70s when he passed away, but to the day he died, he was 100% equity and 100% leverage.
Well, he did live in California, and it's expensive to live there. So you start looking for side gigs, you know?
Well, you know what his biggest secret was his secret sauce was that leverage. That's why he rated so high on Hulbert.
Yeah, I remember all that because I was competing with him. Um, and Hobart didn't distinguish that.
It's really unfortunate because um it took me some digging to really understand that it, they weren't generating any alpha.
Oh, by the way, here's a customer service thing for you. Margin rates are very high now. And I was talking to my Schwab rep, where we have $1 billion at Schwab, and uh, she said, "Oh yeah, if anybody needs to borrow, we can get you a better rate than what we quote." I didn't know that.
Oh, really?
So yeah, if you're a Schwab client, it is let's make a deal, but it's still just a little over the Fed funds rate. Um,
But if if your returns are significantly above market returns, paying that rate, that's a win. That's how Al always saw it.
no, well, the problem is that we have these things called flash crashes,
Oh,
and there'll be margin calls.
and that's how he lost
Well, I'll tell you,
95% of his business in
I,
1987.
well, no, it's worse than that now because there's no inventory of stock. So in August of 2015, we had a flash crash, and we written all these white papers on it. And the stocks were hitting circuit breakers and they wouldn't open, but they were trading the ETFs, and they didn't know how to price the ETFs when the stocks didn't open, so the ETF should have been closed. But the ETF we cited was DVY, which is iShares Dividend ETF, and it gapped down 34.95 that day, stayed there for a few hours, and the day it was unchanged. So if you were on leverage, they would have done a margin call on you. Or if you had a stop loss, they would have fleeced you.
Hmm.
And it's all due to the pricing anomalies. And you can look at DVY and look at a bar chart of it, and you'll see that's not the only flash crash they've had. So that's why I'm so anti-margin, because flash crashes exist.
Yeah, I I have mixed feelings. The obs again, just from analysis, the observation you and I did a white paper on long short, if you
Yeah,
recall, and that was a few years after the flash crash.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
But
but
no,
but but there's you know using the business cycle
yeah.
and the yield curve as your guide for on and off leverage does have some efficacy.
Well, I would highly advise you against doing that. I don't want you to do the leverage ETFs. Because this he wants to pay a 9 to 12% spread on one trade. You remember the
Well,
pot ETF?
here's
You remember the pot boom? I gotta do a money show next week. But
yeah,
remember at one time everybody wanted to invest in
yeah,
pot?
cannabis stocks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know why? Because they had 20% ETF spreads.
Oh, geez.
So they'd have these promo pages. The pot millionaires are becoming pot billionaires. So you click on it, they get your name, they sell you an ETF, and they just fleece you 20%. So the tail was wagging the dog. See, people have to realize the money is in the spreads. It's not in management fees.
Oh, sure.
I have friends that in the ETF business, and they make a lot more money in spreads than they do on management fees. So just to put it in perspective, if Kathy Wood loses 80% of her assets,
Yeah,
she will make more money
yeah.
than if she doubled everybody's assets.
I'm pulling up a spreadsheet here while you're talking, and you and I have had this discussion before about ETFs and the spreads and the phenomenon of buying at the open and selling at the close, or I can't remember exactly how it goes, but holding it or buying it after the close and selling it at the open
Yeah.
worked work better than buying at the open and selling at the close?
I'll give you the numbers.
Okay, but what
No,
before
that's
you do
because it's
that,
extreme. Yeah.
okay, you one of the services I run is an ETF trading, okay, where I'm
Yeah.
entering a trade at the open, all right? And I'm closing it not at the close, but I'm closing it sometimes 5, 10 minutes later. Listen to I wasn't I've been so busy I wasn't even aware of what we were doing, but dating back to April 21st, this is a triple Q trade up up 1.35% that day. Then the next day, or on April 23rd, a PSQ trade, 75 basis points. And then a fading volatility trade, SVXY, 75 basis points. So 70 basis points, 50 basis points, 60 basis points, 70 basis points, 80 basis points. Then I lost 50 basis points, 40 basis points, 60 basis points, 40 basis points, 60 basis points, and then today we did 81 basis points.
Okay, here's what's going to happen. Let's just say all this works. And then you go on, and all of a sudden you're worth $100 million because you've been so successful trading it.
Okay.
And there'll be a flash crash, and everything will get wiped out, and you will be broke. I don't remember 87. There was a guy in Hong Kong that was writing naked call options.
Yeah.
He was just collecting premiums, but he didn't own the stock. And when we had the crash in 87, they went looking for him, and they couldn't find him and almost broke Schwab. And we all thought that's what Bernie Madoff was doing, writing naked options. And that's why he didn't have to register the SEC because they weren't governing options at that time.
Right.
Like, and that's why when he filed the 13Fs, he didn't show any securities because he didn't buy any. He was just writing options. So, but let's just go back and refresh the anomaly. This is Bespoke, and I'm having Paul Hickey on Market Buzz next a week from Friday.
Okay.
And it comes out a week from Sunday. So Paul documented on QQQ, if you buy at the opening, you sell at the close, since inception over 40 years, you're down over 53%.
I know.
If you buy at the close and you sell at the opening, you're up over 2,300%. And if you basically bought and held uh, the ETF, you'd be up over 900%. So all the money's made in the last 15 minutes after the close. So you need to leave Minnesota,
Okay.
move to New York and get some scuzzy friends that let you in their little club.
Well, I like it here in Minnesota, so I just the
But you're
contrarian
hurting your net worth.
the contrary the I know, but
You can earn 2,300%
hey, you know what?
instead of losing 53%.
My my cats don't care about my net worth.
Yeah, they do.
They just want their frisky feast.
When you buy your Serval, like a big African cat with some spots on it and big ears, you have to feed that thing, you know,
Filet mignon.
well, raw meat sliced.
No, I can't see that in my future. But it is interesting, I was going to say the contrarian side of it, because I've heard you give that stat before from Bespoke, and I just can't help but be a contrarian and say I can do the opposite of that.
Okay, but you have to realize I couldn't execute what you're doing.
That I
So
understand
no,
that.
you have to understand that. And I sold my broker dealer business because they were all denying me best execution.
Right.
So if you can get better execution than the rest of us, you are a trillionaire.
Well, and
And I've had that conversation with
we're
people before. I've had that
I'm
conversation with
trading
people.
this with a $20,000 account. So
I've had this conversation with people before, and I says, "Great, okay. How do I place an order through you? How can you execute this?" But anyway, I'm on Morningstar now looking at DVY, and the spread is oscillating from 1 cent to 10 cents in the middle of the day.
Okay.
And but it is tight at the close, and the close is we're 90 well, we're not within 90 minutes of the close, and then uh it's 2.5 hours from the close. Um, but the spreads do oscillate, but they tend to be tight in the morning when you're trading and tight at the end of the day. But in the middle of the day, it's you can drive a truck to these
They're
things.
Grand Canyon like.
Correct.
Yeah, that is it. That's interesting. And it's
Hey,
rare that
give me a symbol of
well,
a leverage ETF. What's
uh,
the symbol?
Thomas QQQ or Sam QQQ. Those are 3x the Qs.
All right, you got a 3 cent spread um, on Thomas, and then
That's not so bad.
and on the pro short. Oh my God. You got a 8 cent spread. I'm looking at the historical spreads. They're pretty bad. Yeah, well,
But
okay.
if you're directionally correct and this is really, you're talking about at most being in the trade for a few hours.
Hmm.
Um,
You
anyway,
see,
I mean,
but
it's just I'm just having a little
but
fun with it.
the irony is I don't care about the markets. I'm trying to do the opposite of the market. I'm trying
Yeah.
to find oasis stocks that are oblivious to the
Yeah.
market. So that's why I'm a high alpha, low beta person.
Boy,
And that's
and
why
you
I
you had a
largely
good
ignore
you
the
had such a
market.
great week this week, Louis,
Yeah, it was a
with
good
your
week.
alpha
Yeah.
stocks.
Yeah, it was a good week. It was a lot of stocks up. Let me see what we had. Uh hold on here. So we had obviously Sezzle was the best at 44. And then we had Philbro Animal Healthcare, PAHC. So that's they sell drugs to all the cows and things. And then we had Pamus Holdings, same as Sizzle. They were up at 10.48. Then we had Robinhood, that was up 15.98.
Wow.
We had a UTI. UTI trains all the techs to do your car, like whatever they're doing in my car here.
Yep.
That was up. UTI was up. Hold on here. 14.7. And then we had a NAGE, which is Niagen Bioscience, was up 22.22. And the Liger was UFP Technologies. It beat, and it's up. It was only up 10.16. That's my Liger. Oh, and I forgot to give you Argon AGX. It was up. Hold on here. It was up. Oh no, Argon was. I'm sorry, only up 7.75. I had a whole bunch of them up 5, 7%.
Yeah.
But yeah, earnings work.
I,
That's what
I,
that
I,
means.
I was just going to say, I mean, I know the market's been, in rally mode, but this past week we've been pretty much trading sideways. So that tells
Well,
me
I did my
you're,
newsletter. Well, I did my newsletter, and which is a lot of stocks. 60 stocks. And this is what we said. Hold on here. What did I say? Bear with me a sec.
yep.
I said, of course, they edited my publishing shop. We were at 4.38% and the S&P improved 1.07.
Wow.
That was a good weight. The Cessils of the world help. That was average weight, not weighted average. What
Sure.
we've often found under management is the actual performance is sometimes better because of the weights. You know what I mean? So, we have Navellier is a huge weight in the portfolio. So it just depends what's rallying.
Hmm. Speaking of NVIDIA, it was a good week for NVIDIA. Um, the president got rid of the restrictions. I
Yeah.
wasn't exactly clear on sales to China.
Well, remember Biden restricted the chips to only 19 countries, the AI chips.
Yeah.
So so you can now move to Zimbabwe and get the chips. Okay.
But what about China? Can NVIDIA sell their AI chip to China?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Well, you no, but China has to buy it through Singapore or some other third party. But no, yeah, the chips Trump put the kibosh on that, but that's why they're meeting in Switzerland this week. And Trump tweeted that he thought maybe 80% tariffs would be ideal. So, right now it's 145. I don't know if I got in this with you, but GM is the biggest importer of foreign-made vehicles, mostly from Daewoo Motors in Korea.
Yes.
And so they bring in over 1,000,002 vehicles a year. Uh, uh, and so they'll be subject to 25% tax. Toyota's getting dinged too, although Japan will be working on a trade agreement. But GM actually imports more vehicles than Toyota. But buried in that stat is they also import 55,000 vehicles from China, and that has to pay 145% tariff now.
Oh, wow.
Mhm. Anyway, the fancy British car I have on order, so hopefully I won't have more than 10% tariff, is what they announced yesterday.
I I guess I wasn't clear on the deal yesterday with the United Kingdom.
It's a 10% baseline tariff.
But not
And
on autos or yes on autos. I
no,
thought
including on first 100,000 a year autos. Kirshheimer carved out 100,000 autos a year. So the Range Rovers, Jaguars, McLarens, I have a Gordon Murray car coming, but yeah, that's the so once they sell over 100,000, that'll be another matter, but they don't sell more than 100,000 does.
okay. And so the
Obviously,
first
Jaguar, Range
100,000
Rovers,
it's zero tariff.
no 10,
It is 10. That's what I was
and
unclear on.
then it goes to 25.
It's it's 10
But
no matter what.
they won't get over 100,000.
Okay.
Otherwise, Kirshheimer would just call.
Yeah.
Well, I read the British media, which of course hates Trump, and the British media is now lambasting Kirshheimer because Trump got him to drop a lot of the agricultural stuff. British beef is horrible. It's just horrible. I don't know if there's no
Yeah.
nutrition in what they eat, and
Yeah.
but we can't ship a cow over there with all our that Philbro Animal Health, that PAHC, and all the stuff they give them to
Yeah.
keep them healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and no, you can't have hormones, so you gotta have just grass-fed beef that never gets treated. Okay,
And
and
that but I thought grass-fed beef non-steroid, non-drug isn't that supposed to be a delicacy?
well, it's supposed to be healthier, but you do live in the Midwest, and there is a lot of corn around you, and as you know, corn-fed beef is pretty good, but often they finish the cows on grass after feed them up on corn,
Yeah, they fatten them up with the corn and
and
then put them
Europe
out to
doesn't like
pasture.
our genetically modified corn. But yeah, but the British farmers are all upset. The same thing with the Canadian farmers. So obviously we're not going to have a deal yet because Carney is He met Trump, and Trump reminded him, they could be the 51st state. Tariffs would fall, and that would be that. Matt Miller on Bloomberg did a good commentary. He has a Chevy pickup, like Atlas pickup. It's made in Mexico. And then he has a hot rod Dodge vehicle that's made in Canada. So it looks like he's a good, great American, but he's a great North American.
Well, Louis, it's a, we're still seeing a lot of cross currents. Volatility remains elevated. What's it going to take, for us to maximize our upside here?
Uh, 3 to 4 Fed rate cuts.
And the Federal Reserve, uh, well, we've beaten that horse pretty good. So
The dollar's going to get its mojo back. The strength of the dollar will offset the 10% tariffs. The 10% tariffs were put in place on everything to tax our underground economy. We have underground economies in America. We have the majority of people don't even pay taxes. So they had to figure out a way to tax those people. And we showed charts of tariffs back in the 1890s when there was no income tax. So they put the income tax in, the tariffs collapsed. But they want to start getting tariff revenue, and they'll decide if they need to tinker with it. But basically, every country they meet with, they make them commit to buying U.S. stuff. And Britain got the best deal anyone can get. I'm sure Australia will get a similar deal. But Germany, Brussels was threatening retaliatory tariffs. And that was just stupid. But you'll notice Trump sucks up to everybody. Mark Carney is not what Trump is, neither is Kirsteimer, but he sucks up to him. Look, he was sucking up to Gretchen Whitmer, the Michigan governor, at a rally.
yeah, I mean he's very adept. There's no doubt about
He
that.
loves to steal the other side's support. So that's why he's got all the union workers now. But it's interesting. So we're going to have no taxes on Social Security, no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime. That's all expensive. So it's possible he will have an extra high bracket for people that make over 2.5 million a year or something. And he'll do that to shut up the Bernie Sanders and the AOCs, and he's working for the billionaires. He'll actually
Yeah,
get
no,
this because
he undercuts his opposition. He's a
he
real
steals
live
it,
Machiavelli.
steals their voters. Yeah.
Yeah, he is a master. There's no doubt about it. What
Yeah.
uh
Well,
what do you make of the I guess the budget passing the tax cuts and all of that? That seems to be a
well,
non-issue
they're
to
gonna
me.
pass by July because they want to go on vacation.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
they'll jam them and they'll get it done by the 4th.
And
But they have this reconciliation. And last time they did that, uh, uh, they were going to get rid of carried interest. And then Christine Sinema says, no, we can't. We got to protect the hedge funds. So they decided to tax the stock
yes.
buybacks. So they will reconcile this. And worst case, they'll have to jack the taxes on the ultra wealthy.
Well, what I was saying is the uncertainty seems to be the skies are clearing. It feels like,
Yeah,
and to me, there's an arbitrage then in the volatility index being,
yeah,
at 23, 24.
I know. But there's also a big cloud over Berkshire Hathaway. I don't know if you noticed.
The resignation of Buffett has
Well,
darkened
first
the
of all,
skies there, huh?
their earnings fell 2/3 because they are a reinsurance company and they got caught on those California fires. So, but the issue with Buffett retiring is what are all those private companies worth? Nebraska Furniture Mart, Borsheims, See's
Dairy Queen.
Candies, yeah, yeah, all that stuff. Whatchamacallit, the Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, all that stuff. So it's always assumed that people are paying up to a 30% premium for Buffett because it's essentially like a big closed-end fund. And I saw this in the Cayman Islands over 35 years ago. And what happened is, um, how do I say this in a nice way? Um, the You could buy George Soros for a dollar 32, but you're only getting a dollar. Okay, people were literally paying 32% premiums to
Premium for the
invest with it.
name.
No, just invest in his hedge fund.
Yeah.
And so I found that to be interesting, and Buffett had the same thing. So when they tell you Buffett's averaged 30% a year, like maybe only averaged 20% a year, because Berkshire Hathaway trades at a premium relative to the underlying assets. So some of his divisions are going to have a problem. Like Nebraska Furniture Mart is two exits off of Plano, Plano in the Dallas area. There's Nebraska Furniture Mart's obviously in Omaha and stuff, but the one in Dallas is 31 football fields.
Oh, good Lord.
So it's two exits off the freeway. So if you have a spouse that can't make up her mind,
Yeah.
just take her there. She'll never buy anything because it's just too much shit, and all that stuff's made in China or the country. So China, moved a lot of its manufacturing to Vietnam and other countries to try to sneak back in with lower tariffs. They're doing something with Mexico. They assemble in Mexico,
Right.
and the so the Mexican deficit went from 40 billion to 178 billion. So China's been trying to you build stuff in other countries and sneak back in. But all your furniture's made overseas, so I wouldn't want to be Nebraska Furniture Mart place in order right now.
It's all very interesting, Louis. GDP now is showing 2.4% growth in
Hmm.
the second quarter. Boy, the U.S. economy is doing great, and I know the media likes to hype the empty shelf story and ships
Hmm.
that are empty and all of that. I'm not even
Hmm.
sure that's happening.
No, in fact, retail sales are out next week, and there's all these retailers that are talking about everybody's hoarding now. So their sales are way up. And even I have a chart of open table reservations are way up. People are getting out and about. So it looks like we're going to have another blowout month of retail sales.
Hmm.
But speaking of hoarding, there's one very important item you need to hoard. Have we
Ah,
discussed this before?
I don't think so.
Toilet paper.
Oh no, we gotta
It
do
comes
that
from
again.
Canada. It comes from Canada.
Oh, they're gonna limit the shipments to,
Well, no, they're going to slap 25% tariff on it.
so it'll be more expensive.
Yeah.
Well, toilet paper's already expensive.
Yeah, but you have
I'm
to go
I'm
hoard
going
it.
back to the outhouse,
So you have a truck, okay, and just fill up the bed with toilet paper.
or we need to be more like the French, Louis, and use the bidets.
I have bidets in every bathroom in my home in Florida. It's a lot because they ran it as a little hotel. And
Wow.
we call them doggy drinking fountains. Okay. Do your dogs know how to turn them on?
My dogs are too dumb to do that.
All right.
But that would solve the toilet paper dilemma.
Okay. All right. So, Bessett's meeting in China this weekend in
Yes.
Switzerland. Trump's off to the Middle East next week. We'll see if we get a new Abraham's Accord and some more free trade agreements with those guys. they're trying to isolate Iran, you know, and
Hey, there's something really cooking in the United Arab Emirates, right? You saw the Disney announcement. They're building a massive
oh yeah, yeah,
theme park there. There's all
Kuwait, they
sorts
have
of
kids
going
there.
ons there, and Trump's right in the middle of it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, well, so is his son-in-law, Jared.
Yeah, yeah,
So, so interesting times. It's
it is.
Jarrett was with Ivanka, his wife. Yeah, apparently they got accosted or something in down in Miami area. Anyway, their security took the guy out, so they were
Louis,
kind of shocked.
before we wrap up today, I want to make sure earnings season is not over. There are several companies, some I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah, Walmart's next week. That's the
Walmart
biggest.
Thursday before the market opens.
Deer, oh God, I just did a video talking about earnings, but it was Deere, Walmart. Oh, Applied Materials next week.
Are you
There
in
was one.
Cava was one I noticed. CAVA.
Yeah, that's the restaurant stock I own. They're stealing market share from Chipotle. Yeah,
Yep. DaVita, medical
that's
device.
it. That's dialysis. So when your kidneys stop working, you go there.
They report Monday after the market closes. And then there are some, you know, I doubt you own these, but they score pretty well on your model. The
Mhm.
quantum computing names, RGTI and Qubit.
D-Wave, yeah, RBGTI. D-Wave just beat. They're not earning money yet, but their sales are strong, and they lost less than else expected.
So from
But I
that,
only buy them when
you need to have
yeah,
positive earnings,
they
though,
earn
don't
money.
you?
Yeah, well, yeah, because I have E&O insurance, and it's 30,000 a month. So if I was buying stuff that didn't earn money, my E&O would be 100 a month.
Really? That's part of your policy, huh?
Yeah, I'm registered with the SEC. I have to have E&O.
Well,
I have
I
accounts with
get that, but
Schwab. I
the E
have
and
to
O
have E&O.
require the E and O dictates what kind of stocks you can own
Oh no, 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 no! I can buy the stuff that doesn't earn money. It just they won't cover me. It's called a rider.
in case
Yeah.
somebody
In
litigates
other words,
against
no, no, it's called a rider. It's an insurance rider.
you. Yeah.
It's just like, hey, you're a dumb, you know what? So we're not covering you. Yeah. It's like if you smoke in bed and your house burns down, there might be a rider for that.
There's a reason why the passive investment strategies and the passive houses have just blown up. I mean, the how difficult they make it for you to operate is beyond me.
Well, again, financial advisors do not sell stocks because if they do, they're poor. They sell private credit. They sell alternative investments.
Hmm.
That pays them a lot more money. Again, I have a daughter at Morgan Stanley. I have a son-in-law at Merrill Lynch. They don't do stocks. There's no financial incentive for them to do that. And private credit is over is a $2 trillion a year industry going to 3 trillion. But I'm at a car dealership now, and because my car's getting service, and I do have perfect credit, and I could get a loan, I mean, if I wanted to. But most people don't. But
Hmm.
they will have people to lend you do a lease with 10% interest and all that stuff. So what's happened to finance in America? We're no different than China. They have the official lending by the banks and then the unofficial by the intermediaries. But the intermediaries are leveraging this debt. And one day it's going to blow up. It's going to be a black hole. And it's going to force the Fed to slash rates to save all these financial institutions that would otherwise go under.
Right.
No, it's like too big to fail. You can look at that's why Sezzle went up because people have credit problems. That's why payments went up. You had another one that was helping people with credit.
Yeah. Shift
So you go to
four. Mhm.
you go to the store, you check out. Oh, you mean I can put this on deferred or I can pay this over time. Yeah. And then those people report to the credit agency and your credit rating falls, even if you make all your payments.
Careful what you get into, folks, is the message. Because there there
Well,
are there are sharks around every corner.
there's one
Loan sharks.
exception. There's one thing you need to get. Did we have the black Amex conversation before?
No.
All right. So we had an institutional guy, and his sister was married to Seth Tobias, who was Circle T Partners. You probably remember him on Squawk Box many years ago.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, he divorced her and he moved to Florida. And he had a home on the golf course I remember at. And what Seth's fatal error is he had a black Amex. Because when you show a black Amex and you're a man, you will get instant female companionship. Because you
Oh,
have to spend
they
eighty
they
thousand a
they
month.
know how to look out for that, huh?
They have to you have to spend 80,000 a month on that card.
Oh,
So he got married to Phyllis. She was 32. It was her fifth marriage. And then she drowned him in the pool and had it resurfaced 18 hours later and got away with it. We called her the Black Widow.
and where is she
And
now?
I don't know. She sold the house, and she's also famous for harassing somebody at Miami Heat games, the players as they walk through the tunnel. She was a very
Right.
athletic lady. We'd see her jogging, and she had a lot of muscle on her. I was in shape, but yeah, and no one wanted to date Phyllis because she first of all, you couldn't date her unless you had money. And if you did have money, you'd be dead.
Philomena Tobias.
Yeah. This is another consumer um, service thing, I should say. So, I have some friends that have Trump derangement syndrome,
Yep.
and one got so depressed, he stopped eating, passed out, was on the floor for 5 days. They finally got him, found him, got some water in him, but he died 18 hours later because your kidneys are done. You can't, have your kidneys dry out,
Yeah.
I've got another friend, similar thing, actually a Mar-a-Lago member, hates Trump, and he just sits there and watches MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and all the other shows. And I've gone to his house to here, watch Joe Rogan, watch this, and he's having an almost identical path to my friend that just dropped dead. So Trump derangement syndrome will kill you.
And that is a maybe a good way to call it a day, Louis. The I started by saying I was depressed because earnings season was coming to a conclusion, and there's nothing to worry about anymore.
Jamie, just go get some chickens. Okay, you have a lot of animals. Go get some chickens. The cats
I
will love
I,
to chase them
I need to
around.
figure out how to have free range chickens so my animals don't harass them.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah. That's what I would do. And
Any final thoughts, Louis?
no, I mean, it's still earning season. Enjoy it. Trump's manipulating the market now with all his stuff. I
He
assume you'll
gave
have
the
good
signal
news.
yesterday. He said buy
Yeah,
stocks.
and he's in the money management business. Remember,
Yeah.
he's got four different managed accounts at Yorktown. An open Schwab account. Yorktown's a subdivisor on True Social. So I'm waiting for him to put disclosures on True Social. But the bottom line is, um, they're going to be having a lot of good news coming out to spark the market. But we do need the Fed to to be stop being clueless and to look at
Yes.
the raw data. We have CPI and PPI next week. Should be very, very favorable. I don't expect to see any inflation in those reports.
Well, hopefully that
I,
if those reports are favorable, that could be a blast off moment.
I would add that Ford had increased the price of its Mach-E by 2 grand and the Bronco by 2 grand because they're made in Mexico.
Yeah, we're still waiting for all of the impacts. It's so complex; it's hard to know. Uh, some of the tariffs are in effect, some of them are not. There are exceptions everywhere. I
Hmm.
guess, you just, to me, the best thing you can do is just ignore it, like you say, and focus
It's a
on,
10% across the board tariff on everything.
yeah,
And the autos have a little extra. But you
yeah.
you can meet Trump, make a deal, and then they fall.
And then it goes
Now
away.
USMCA is the U.S. Mexican Canadian agreement that will expire next year, and then Trump will renegotiate that.
All right. Louis, thanks as always. Great thoughts. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend. You and I will
Yep.
be back next week. This is JD for the Rational Trader Podcast. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you next time.